Welcome to the We as Nature podcast, where inspiring visionaries share their personal stories of living in alignment with the more than human world, and how this informs their unique contribution to cultivating a flourishing future for life on Earth. Each month, We as Nature features a new storyteller, sharing their experience of how listening to and learning from diverse forms of life has altered their course. The power of story lies within each of us, offering a portal to the language of the heart, connecting us to our feelings as a source of inspiration and courage from which we can act. For those of us seeking to create a flourishing world, starting right where we are, these We as Nature stories offer a space to listen, contemplate, and envision new possibilities. We as Nature is brought to you by Flourishing Diversity, and you can find out more about who we are and what we do at the end of the episode, as well as in the show notes. Today we welcome Method Gundidza, Director of EarthLore Foundation-Southern Africa and a founding member of the Earth Jurisprudence collective. Method is a Zimbabwean national who was working as an accountant when he was awakened to the intelligence of the natural world. He now dedicates his time to working with rural farming communities to revive indigenous knowledge and governance systems. Method discovered his calling in his early 40s through immersing himself in the philosophy and practice of Earth Jurisprudence. In 2014, he began a dialogue with the elders in his home village in Zimbabwe, participating in reconnecting with earth-centered ceremonies and practices in this drought-prone region. Then, in April 2018, he was invited to speak at the UN Harmony with Nature Dialogue. We are so excited to feature Method on the We as Nature podcast. His story is steeped in contagious passion, good humour, and deep respect for all communities of life. Before Method shares his story, we will leave an intentional 10-second pause. This is an opportunity to settle into your environment, observe your breath, and become aware of your contact points with the chair or ground beneath you. Begin to drop your awareness from your mind down into your body as you move towards a space of listening.
My name is Method Gundidza, born and grew up in Zimbabwe, but I'm speaking to you right now from Johannesburg, South Africa. I have been hunting down for the correct spirit that would accompany this story today. And it didn't come easily until this morning when I was preparing for this talking session, and then I met this book, which is a memo of all the things that we did when I was part of the EJ training, Earth Jurisprudence training, from 2014 to 2017. And then I met something there, and then the whole spirit of this story just came down. And so I'll share with you my story, the story of my journey. Well, I was born in a Christian family, growing up and going to school like any other young men, going to college and going to university, becoming an accountant, going to work and setting up a few small businesses back then in Zimbabwe. Actually, I was in the business of selling coal as a coal merchant. Quite interesting. And I mean, as life would take me, I left Zimbabwe for South Africa in 2007. And there, I met up with an organization called NICRO, where I joined them as the regional finance manager at the time. And then I had the privilege at the time to be part of a piloting project where NICRO wanted to explore opportunities for integrating traditional justice systems to the court system, the state-managed court system. And so that gave me a privilege of meeting a group of traditional leaders back then in 2012, 2013. And this was before a job came up with then MUPO Foundation, now EarthLore Foundation. I applied for the job to become the finance person in this very small organization, coming from a big organization called NICRO, which has offices all over South Africa. And my wife asked me, "What are you doing? What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, it's an attempt. I don't know what it means, but I will go for it. My heart is for it." So I went through all the processes, getting interviewed over the phone, and finally being invited to a live interview about 500 kilometers away. And my wife accepted to accompany me, even though she did not agree with the decision for me to leave a job in a big organization to join a small organization for smaller pay even. Everything was just crazy about it. So I joined the organization as the finance manager. And one of these days, on the 29th of May, 2014, the first EJ training session is arranged by the Gaia Foundation. And this was bringing in a consortium of people drawing from as far as Kenya, Benin, Uganda, Ethiopia. And I say, well, as the finance person, let me attend the session so as to ensure that all logistical issues are in place. And so I go there and I sat in for a moment with the intention that I would leave. But it wouldn't be that. I sat in for the rest of the day. And then I asked Liz at the time, I said, "Can I come back tomorrow?" She said, "Of course, you are welcome to come." So I came back. And then the third day, I came back again. And what I went through, one of the most striking things that I went through, which is called a Mystica. A Mystica describing the time we spend in nature, doing nothing except to listen, except to feel, except to see, to smell, to bring every sense of the human being to be there. And that was the moment. When I experienced it the first day, the second day, and the third day, something changed in me. Completely. I felt I could hear plants talking to me. I mean, the birds sing as if they are singing for nobody or they are singing to each other. But I felt them singing for me. And I could feel the wind was touching me with care. And I felt something was different about this whole experience. So it went on for 3 days. And afterwards, I had to write my reflection of the process, which I'm going to read to you today. This is what I wrote on the 1st of June in 2014. I said, Earth Jurisprudence is about the nature of law. and the nature of law is written in the hearts of all humanity. That is why the history of all indigenous communities show how they used to align their living with the nature of law and live in harmony with nature till civilization broke it all. And our mission as Earth Jurisprudence practitioners is really to bring back all these connections. And one of the qualities will be that one observes how the laws of nature operate, understand it, and act accordingly. I wrote this as a reflection of the process that I had gone through in those 3 days. Immediately afterwards, I arranged to take a trip back home to Zimbabwe because this training was happening in South Africa. I went back and I approached the elders in my own family, elders in neighboring communities, speaking to them very generally, sitting under the shade of different types of trees and even enjoying our traditional beer. But each time I spoke to the elders, I felt this sense through them of how they, in some time in the past, were connected to their land, to the other beings on the land. But that elder after elder mourned and was in grief about that loss. And I thought there was work to be done. And I committed myself that I would, with the elders and the other community members, set out and accompany them on a journey to revive this wonderful connection again. So we had many sharings on a one-to-one with elders until such time that it became necessary to bring the elders together for them to share with each other, with me too. And I do recall in one of the sessions, and we were talking about the seeds that used to be grown. They were talking about finger millet, they were talking about pearl millet, and some even then brought about sogoda, a seed that I had not seen in my whole life until that time. I was around 40 or so thereabout. And I hadn't known it, but I had grown up in that community. I was very surprised. And in one of the sessions, we were talking more generally. And one elder says to me, this is how we see the connections of things. When we grow our crops, we know which one loves which one. For example, pearl millet loves juco beans. And I said, okay, I had heard about agroecology by that time. And I thought, is he meaning intercropping? But I mean, he did not say intercropping. He said, juco beans love pearl millet. Okay? He goes on to say, when we grow juco beans, it is a tree outside of the field, somewhere in the forest. It will tell us when the juco beans are ripe. Look at the mvumira tree. When you see its leaves turning yellow, you know your juco beans are ready to be eaten. I'm just listening and hearing, and this just took me into this world of plants, connecting with my first interaction with plants in the Mystica at the first EJ training. I just thought, well, this is another world for me. It's as if the plants really took over my intelligence. And in the process, I continued with the practice of the Mysticas, bringing in my family slowly. It wasn't an easy thing. I remember one day walking with my daughter on the street, and we see a tree that had been cut. And then my daughter said, "Dad, stop." I stopped. She said, "Can you see?" I said, "What?" She said, "Look at the tree. The tree is bleeding." Well, I had not thought in that sense, really. So she draws me closer to the tree. She says, "Look at this tree, Dad. It's got a skin like me. It's got flesh like me. And right in the middle of the flesh, there is a bone there. Can you see it? And go up the tree. Can you see the many hands that the tree has? Doesn't it look like me?" Wow. I said, "Let's talk when we get home." So we went home. And I mean, she challenged me to take things really a lot further, thinking about, how plants live, how plants feed themselves, how plants feed us and animals and birds and insects. It takes me back to the village where I meet the elders again and say, "But it's not enough to hear what you tell me about. What else? What else can we do to get things going?" One elder said, "When we have to talk about our connection to nature, our belongingness to nature, we have to talk about our rituals." I said, "Okay, so meaning what?" He says, "I'm talking here about the rituals, for example, to ask for rain, rituals to bless the first fruits." And I'm getting even more interested. These are some rituals that have been done in the past 40 years, and they haven't been done again. So the elders explained some of these things to me. And in the group, in the community gatherings, in the community dialogues, these things begin to emerge. So who used to do what? Where was what done? And what did we need? We needed things like finger millet, which is a sacred crop to our land and to our people. Now, over the years, and with the work of reviving seeds, the finger millet was there. It had come back, and the elders said, "Now it is the time for us to go up the mountains. The finger millet is here. The elderly women who brew the beer are here. The elderly men who go up the mountains with the elderly women are here. It is time that we should go up the mountains again and celebrate and speak to our ancestors." So, fast forward my story to April 2021, which is this year. I experienced the first ritual of celebrating first fruits, otherwise known in other circles as the biting ritual. A ritual in which all first fruits, before anything is eaten, are harvested and gathered in one place. Elders, men and women who are spiritual leaders, take this, they take it to the sacred sites. They do an offering. They come back in singing and dancing, singing in vulgar language, dancing in the most of vulgar ways you can imagine. They come back. Everybody joins in the singing and the dancing. And it's everything raw, not cooked. Grain of finger millet, grain of pearl millet, maize, juco beans, groundnuts, everything raw. And the elders say, we do this because we understand that before we eat, we must acknowledge that the land has given us this. The skies have made this possible. The insects, the bees, and the other animals, our own domestic animals, have helped us to produce this food. So when we live here, no one takes anything back home. Eat as much as you want. When you are done, leave. Don't look back. Don't come back and take anything, because this, what we leave, our animals will eat. They helped us. Other wild animals will eat. They helped us. But we have also shared as a human community. Now you go back home and tell the others that we can start eating of this fresh produce. And so one by one, we all walk away, disappearing without talking to each other and going back home to tell the others to start eating that which the land gave to us, that which our ancestors gave to us, that which our animals helped us produce, that which the bees helped us produce. And so the food is open for everyone to eat. When I started telling this story, I've actually forgot to bring the spirit of my community in Bikita into this story, into now. The community in Venda, in Limpopo, the community in Mpumalanga, in South Africa. This experience, my life experience, has been made possible by them as they held me, as they accompanied me while they thought I was accompanying them, as they nurtured me, as they made me grow to the understanding and living in a war. One cannot take this without humility. As we say, the planet Earth is a huge planet. If one doesn't get the privilege of going into space to see it orbiting around the sun, you can never feel it as one single unit. But when we spend time in nature, we have the privilege of experiencing our planet, the wholeness of it. We also experience how small we are in the vastness of the cosmic system. And this can only make us even more humble, belonging to a huge world in which we are but just sent.
A huge thank you to Method Gundidza for sharing his inspiring story, and thanks for listening. You can find links to Method's work and where to connect with him in the show notes. The We as Nature podcast is recorded live during an online gathering where each month a new guest shares their story and attendees enjoy the opportunity to connect with other listeners. You can find a link to our upcoming We as Nature live events, which are free to attend, in the show notes. We as Nature is brought to you by Flourishing Diversity, an initiative bringing together voices from all over the world to explore humanity's interconnection with the lands, waters, forests, and fellow species. Flourishing diversity is a path towards a vibrant future and offers a collective approach in response to climate breakdown and biodiversity loss. We create spaces to listen to and learn from all life, raise critical questions, search for alternative answers, and amplify generative biocultural practices. You can register to receive updates and inspiration from us at flourishingdiversity.com, as well as finding us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. All the links are in the show notes. Thanks for being here, and we hope you'll join us again soon.